The kettlebell swing is the reason you probably signed up for the She Beast program. It's the first ballistic kettlebell exercise we learn, meaning the one that is an explosive exercise. We use our glutes, meaning our butt, and our nice strong hip hinge, which we practice with the deadlift, to explode the weight out in front of us. So I'm going to show you a few kettlebell swings and then break down how we're going to do it. So you might have noticed there was a lot going on there. There's a setup, there's a strong movement, there is a very loud breathing pattern. We're going to go through it all. First of all, you've already practiced your hip hinge, so I'm not going to harp on that too much, but it is a strong hip hinge, meaning the hips are the primary mover here. Your hips go back as your torso comes down and your knees bend to facilitate that. And much like the deadlift, we are here with the lower body, but the arms don't go down. They go back, and then as you stand up, they shoot forward. So before we even touch the bell, we're gonna practice that. Take a big exhale, tailbone towards the floor, ribs towards the hips, ab wall is on. I want you to take your arms and hinge and karate chop your thighs. You see here, my arms are really coming to my inner thigh here. Elbow is reaching for the groin. I'm high in this inner thigh. And then stand up really quick and see how your arms get tossed up by that momentum from your legs. And we're gonna do it 5 times here. Good. Now you notice I'm doing some loud breathing, so let's talk about that too. When I do a kettlebell swing, I inhale or breathe in through my nose and exhale through my mouth. Most people will remember one or the other, so I want you to work hard to remember both. When the kettlebell comes down, I breathe in through my nose, and when it explodes up, I breathe out through my mouth. There's power in your breath. So try 5 more with that breathing pattern and see if you have more momentum in the arms. Good. So now we're starting to get a hang of what the body is doing. But when we apply weight to it, it can get a little confusing. So first we're going to start with a nice strong setup. Pick one of your lighter bells for starters, though I promise you're going to move up quick. And I want you to stand 1 foot's distance away from the bell and then get your other foot behind it. This is how far back we're going to be. And then get about hips distance, meaning outside of the hips, line up to the inside of the arch of the foot apart. For me, that's about pinky toes just shy of a yoga mat, but everyone is going to have a different stance. I have done thousands, tens of thousands of kettlebell swings that I still set up every single time, but you will come to learn that sweet spot and know where it is for you. So from here, we have the triangle of you and the bell. Then we're going to have a triangle with ourselves. So we start with that hip hinge, sending the hips back. Grab onto the kettlebell and send your shoulder blades down your back. Now your shoulders are above the hips and the hips are above the knees. And I'm in a nice, strong starting position. From here, what happens next is you hike the bell. This means I send it in between my legs like I'm, hiking a football, and then you park it. This is a hike and park drill. Inhale, exhale to hike. And I'm really karate chopping my thighs, keeping my back flat, but my shoulders above my hips. Stand up and shake it out, but what I don't want to have happen is you have your shoulders below your hips or in line with your hips. Then you won't actually be able to have a strong hike and there won't be any starting strength. Because if I do this, see there, that doesn't look strong. Can you imagine going from having the kettlebell back down here to standing up? That would be really hard on your back. So this karate chop needs to happen high in the inner thigh and close to your elbow. Think of loading a slingshot. We're pulling it back so there's a lot of power for the kettlebell to explode forward. So after you practice maybe 10 of these hike and park drills here, hike, park, hike, park, hike, park, I want you to apply it to a swing. So that means after we hike the bell, we're going to project the bell, and then we're going to bring it back down and put it on the floor. It's called a dead stop swing. It's a single rep of a swing, one at a time, and it looks like this. We start foot's distance away from the bell, core on, hips go back, grab onto that kettlebell, lock the arms into the shoulder sockets, and now hike, project, hike, and park. And the key here is making your body move as a unit. As I stand up, I need my hips to pull through at the same time as that kettlebell floats to its top position. The top of this kettlebell swing is about as high as my shoulder, maybe slightly higher, not up here. And it can be down here too if it's heavy. Wants to be somewhere between like hip and nose. Make sense? So we're gonna try a few more of those. Pulling the hips through and standing up tall at the top. So lock your arms into the shoulder sockets, hike, project, hike, park. And I wanna show you here what happens if I don't pull my hips through at the same time. You see, my back wasn't flat, the kettlebell ended here, my knees were still bent. I wanna be here. So you've gotta think of coming up tall as your arms float up. And this is just something that will get better with practice. So give 5 of these dead stop swings a try on your own. Really pull those hips through. Grab the floor with your toes. If you feel like you're gonna fall back, grip the ground with your toes more. And really make sure before you start the swing that that weight feels like an anchor. It should be holding you up. It might not be heavy enough to hold you up, but if you're holding like a 1/6 of your body weight, it'll probably anchor you. And then the next thing we move on to are continuous swings, right? That's what we think of when we think of a kettlebell swing, it going up, back and forth, back and forth. And once you've mastered that dead stop swing, it's pretty easy. We get our foot's distance away from the bell. Big exhale. Core on, tailbone towards the floor, hips back. And now continuous swings. As it goes down, we just stand right back up. So that's a kettlebell swing. Give 5 to 10 a try on your own. And I'm gonna go over a few common issues. First, as I mentioned, we see people not standing far enough up at the top. So you can practice this without the weight if your issue is not standing up tall, sending the hips back, and then squeezing the front and the back of the leg at the top. Instead of just kind of maybe coming to here, really squeeze your glutes and lock out tall. It's like you're squeezing a nut, cracking a nut with your butt cheeks and squeezing your kneecaps at the same time. We want that co-contraction of the front and the back of the leg. So we're getting both of those on. Another common issue I see is people not straightening their arms enough. We want to make sure that we're not T-Rexes when we do swings. So when the arms aren't straightened, this is what the swing looks like. There's a lot of wrist and elbow happening. Once that kettlebell is heavy, that is not going to go well. So we want to imagine that we're kind of in like a triangle-shaped plank at the top of that swing. Long arms, shoulders down, nice and tall. So that looks like this. And the other thing I see, and I mentioned this before, is not hiking the kettlebell enough into the groin. When that happens, the swings end up with a lot of spinal flexion. We end up leaning forward, and that can cause a lot of problems in the upper back. So that looks like this. I am not engaging my upper back. I am not having a strong hike, and I look like I'm about to turtle over. So we avoid this by sitting those hips back, hiking high in the groin, and pulling the shoulders down the back. And the last problem is also solved by the standing up tall thing I talked to in the beginning, which is getting an arched lower back. Sometimes people get too thrusty with their swings, and it ends up being like this at the top. And that can kind of look like this, which looks ridiculous, but people don't realize they're doing it. So we avoid that again by squeezing the front and the back of the legs together. You can practice by just squeezing your butt and seeing that your hips can shift forward here. If we squeeze the front of the leg around the kneecap and the thigh and the back of the leg at the same time, we can't go anywhere. So those are a few common issues you might encounter while doing your swings. As you go through them, videotape yourself, share it with me, watch it and see how you're doing so that way you can troubleshoot your swings on your own.